Hello and welcome. It's time again for the JoJo and Joe show.
Hello, I'm JoJo.
And I'm Joe, and we are, we just got done with our Wuhan lab video, or podcast, I should say. And so now we're going back to the UFOs, because I'd really like to get through the Basement Office shows. We're going through the Basement Office, the New York Post YouTube series. And kind of one of the reasons we're doing that is because of all the new revelations coming out, the military saying, hey, these are official UFO videos, we acknowledge that these are real. And so that's getting the conversation going again. And plus, I guess there was some provision stuck in some bill that Congress passed that said that you have to reveal all your declassified UFO stuff by like June 21st. So a lot of people are excited about that and talking about that. Were they going to reveal?
You think that's actually a real thing?
Well, I'm thinking that they're not going to reveal much. I mean, ever since people found out about FOIA, the law that says you can request access to these things, the government has found ways to get around that and hide the information, regardless of their FOIA requests.
So nothing's actually changed. Well, then why are they talking about UFOs now? See, is suspicious.
No, I'm
me.
just saying, because the military came out and said these are real and everything. They had leaked videos come out. They were leaked for months before the military finally said, okay, yeah, these are really from...
I mean, why now? Why would they get all leaked now? Why?
Oh, well,
that's what I'm wondering.
It's a very good question. A lot of people are asking that question. Yeah, for sure. And the episode we're going to be watching today is episode 3, Black Triangle UFOs, Phoenix Lights, Hudson Valley, Belgium, from the Basement Office.
All right. And we already have someone sketchy on the screen, so let's go for it.
So you're judging a book by its cover. Okay.
I am this morning, I guess.
Boy, spooky music. I forgot to use this in our last one, so I wanted to make sure I used it in this one.
Yeah, this lady looks a little spooky, but I'm going to listen to what she has to say.
All right, here we go.
The top orb, without budget, from the other two underneath, started to implode. It's like a dimmer switch. It was mechanical, as if there was an intelligence behind it.
While reports of flying saucers dominated UFO sightings for an entire generation, today there's a new type of craft that seems to be threatening our skies. It's fast, it's mysterious, and to me it's a lot more frightening than its predecessor. It's the Black Triangle. This is the Basement Office.
So yeah, some of those shots they opened the show with look like drones to me, flying in V formation.
Kind of like geese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we're here joined by Nick Pope, the Fox Mulder of Great Britain. Let's talk about the triangles. Now, when did these things start popping up?
There are some reports going back as far as the 50s, but really the modern black triangle, flying triangle mystery really takes off, I guess, in the 80s.
We have witness reports throughout the 60s and 70s, but they're sporadic. And then, as you would say, on come the waves. And that brings us to 1980 and the now infamous Rendlesham Forest Triangle.
It's been called Britain's Roswell.
And these are military personnel, U.S. Air Force personnel, go into the forest to investigate lights, and they see this, I think they estimated 10 foot solid black triangle, and it levitates.
And this thing, unlike most UFOs, actually landed. So he really did get up close and personal with it.
Rendlesham, of course, you could write a whole book about. In fact, you did write a whole book about Rendlesham. Our next episode actually is going to focus completely on this crazy incident. But for sake of this episode, we're going to move on and chronologically follow this triangle around the world. The next, chronologically speaking, seem to be the Hudson Valley sightings.
Sure. The Hudson Valley sightings are really bizarre, but unlike Rendlesham, this thing is much bigger. I mean, we're talking here, some of the witnesses will talk about these things being the size of football fields. but hovering or moving very slowly in the sky and then accelerating away to the horizon at an incredible rate.
Thousands of witnesses describe seeing massive objects in the sky, outlined by colorful lights. But I Skyped with one of the few who managed to film what she saw.
We were actually driving down Route 84, going eastbound, when we saw this thing in the sky. So when we got home, we thought we lost it, and my husband went to let the dog out, and he called me and he said, "You got to see this. Come out here. It's back." So when we saw this object in the sky, the first thing we did is we ran in and grabbed the video camera and just started taking images of it. It was a ring of lights, but when this round object flew over, we could not see through it. The lights were actually, you could see by a naked eye, you can't see it in the video, but the lights are actually turning. They were turning to the left, and they started changing colors as they turned.
While many accounts described V-shaped or boomerang-shaped objects, Lori says she saw it from a different perspective.
The way people are describing it is based on where they were standing. Some people were standing directly underneath it. So could it have been a V-type shape formation or a boomerang shape? It's possible, yes. From where I was standing, I was more east of the object, so I could have been looking at it from a different angle.
It's constant. It's night after night, week after week, month after month of the same thing, correct?
Yes, and people are beginning to think, why aren't the authorities doing something? Or maybe the authorities know all about this and maybe there's nothing they can do. But the people there feel almost as if they're under siege.
My stepdaughter was up the road and she had called us and she was watching it with her friends up the road. They were very scared. A lot of people had different reactions. They held a lot of community gatherings after this sighting had been seen. And people were blaming the government. Other people wanted the government to tell them what was going on. Other people were afraid. You had some people coming back saying they were abducted. There was a mix of people.
From what I understand of the Hudson Valley wave, people are calling 911, people are calling airports, and police officers are showing up and seeing these things also, and reporting that they have seen these things.
Yes, you think that the police are going to turn up and be the ones to debunk this, but as you say, the police turn up and...
Whoa,
hey,
that's a cool
if there's
shot.
this huge, great thing just hanging in the sky, of course they're going to see it too, and that's why, yes, we have many, many police witnesses.
Did the government ever come out, investigate, say anything?
The problem with all this is, at the time, we were in that era where the official position of the US government was, we don't investigate UFOs. We now know with the revelations about the Pentagon's ATIP program that that was probably not entirely correct. However, the government was in a very difficult position in the 80s. If they turned out overtly and investigated, turned up, started interviewing witnesses on the doorstep, making paper trail of government documents, they would have basically blown their own position out of the water. So if there was government investigation, it went on behind closed doors.
Nothing
Someone
new
from the
about
Army
that.
had come to my house to investigate the tape, to make sure that the tape was authentic and it was not something that we made up or we created.
Is it possible that what you filmed that night was a formation of planes?
No, it's already been analyzed. It was not planes.
Or flares?
No, it's not something they've never seen before.
What about
The
geese with
constant
headlamps
frustrating
on?
thing for me is to read about these cases, to read the police reports, the official reports, the photographs, and to see complete inaction. And almost they go out of the way to show their disinterest in something so massive and that's freaking people out. Their citizens are scared of this.
Yes, and I was part of that same policy in the UK. Consistently, we downplayed the true extent, the very large extent, of our own interest and involvement in this subject. The answer to the question that, why aren't people doing more? What are the government going to do? Is they can't stop it. They don't know what it is. They can't do anything about it, and no government would ever come out overtly and say there's something in our skies, it's faster than us, it's more maneuverable than us, we chase them, we can't catch them, we track them on radar, we have no idea, sorry. No government can, that's not tenable.
Well, Main Joe, if I could just say,
let's jump in, because they're going on and on about this Hudson
so
incident,
it's crazy
Hudson
because,
Valley.
again, right, why would the government all of a sudden admit it now when they've spent years and years denying it for the very reason he just explained? Why would they come out and say, hey, there's something better than us?
Because they can't deny it any longer, perhaps.
Well, but why?
Because they had that video leak of, and they've got people on aircraft carriers and radar operators and pilots saying, shit's going on out here.
Okay.
Because the pilots are seeing it day after day.
Okay, so
too.
Anyway,
so what do you think about the video we've seen that lady took? I'm not very impressed by it. The lights are weird. You can't really make much out.
Well, I think the thing that struck me the most was when, I can't remember which one of the witnesses, it might have been that lady, said that they were sort of underneath the object. So they saw the lights in the front. They were kind of in geese formation, right? Mm-hmm. And then as they were looking up at the sky, they could see nothing else. It was just black. For
they couldn't see through
it. As far as they could see above them, it was black. Mm-hmm. So that tells me the size of it was pretty big.
Yeah.
And I've spoken before on this podcast about a friend that I have who's, an expert, in the field and has had many experiences herself, and counseled many other people who have had them. But one time, she lives in central Utah, there was a craft that was hovering just above the cloud line. I think I might have already shared this story.
Shared this one, yeah.
And you can feel it's kind of subsonic. It's below what you can hear, but it's a very low-level hum, almost that you can feel in your bones. So it would be interesting to see if that lady, maybe she was to the side of it, if it's directly over you, what are you feeling?
Yeah.
Inside, besides your thoughts, which are going crazy, what the hell is this? Am I insane? Am I seeing an alien? Are they going to abduct me? Who knows what your brain is thinking, but to be able to feel with your body
a presence, something.
Yeah, the immensity of whatever it is and the immense amount of power that it has.
Makes sense, yeah.
To zip off like that in 1 second. They showed a couple of those where all of a sudden the craft just exactly on Deep Space Nine, how they go through warp speed, boom, and they're gone, right? That's what they look like when they take off, literally.
So yeah, they didn't really show any video where it took off. That was a simulation, just to kind of show you that wasn't video footage of anything. But what gets me about this is that multiple witnesses. I mean, she was talking with someone down the street. They could see it. It happened night after night for a while, it sounds like. So we got video, we got police, so we got, quality witnesses. The video was analyzed. They weren't flares. They don't look like flares to me. They're not planes. They don't look like planes to me either.
They're not geese with headlamps on, are we sure?
I guess my only problem with this is that video isn't fitting my mold that I have in my mind as to what a spaceship should look like. Once again, it's just so weird that I have that even. Yeah. So anyway,
let it go.
It's just happened in the 80s. It sounds like a very credible UFO sighting.
This incident, as it went on night after night, did they decide that it was one huge ship or a bunch of smaller ships with one huge ship? Like what?
I'm getting the impression it was one huge ship, but they're not even done talking about it.
Coming back. Yeah. Okay.
Let's see if we can finish up the Hudson Valley incident here.
Interesting.
You just said that you played a role in downplaying to the public.
Yes.
Something would happen, and it was your role to downplay it to the people, right?
Sadly, yes.
So you were part Mulder and cigarette smoking.
Yes, I had this kind of split identity, I guess, but it was government policy. And, somewhere in those X-Files, there are even some papers that come out and say this. It was consistently UK government policy to downplay this subject. Partly, as I say, it's just the sheer embarrassment of saying there are things in our airspace and we don't know what they are.
Let's jump across the Atlantic from the Hudson Valley to Belgium. In 1990, another wave of triangles hits Belgium.
So 10 years later.
Actually from 89 through to 90 and culminating on one particular night, there is this wave of sightings. And when I say wave, let me just contextualize this. I'm talking about hundreds of sightings over a period of just a few months in a very small, when you think about it in global terms, geographical area. So this wave of sightings with many of the witnesses being police officers. For example, I've seen reports of police officers on patrol jumping into their car trying to chase some object that they've seen, picking up the phone, calling the Air Force, saying, what's going on in our skies? And then there's this one night, March 30th, late on March 30th, early hours March 31st, 1990, a huge triangular UFO is seen over large parts of Belgium. The Belgian Air Force track it on radar, on both the Belgian national radar system, and that's part of the wider NATO integrated air defense system. They scramble two F-16 fighter interceptors.
Wow.
Those jets go up. The pilots get a lock-on to this object with their airborne radars. So it's been tracked on the ground, in the air. The pilots are repeatedly vectored towards this UFO. And every time they get close, the UFO breaks the radar lock, moves, the pilots have to reacquire it, and a game of virtual cat and mouse takes place in the skies over Belgium.
At what point is that famous photo taken from the underneath?
Now, that I believe was taken at some stage on that particular night. I don't know at exactly what time, and actually the original photo is quite dark, but when you try and touch it up a little, a craft seems to emerge out of the darkness.
The main thing that I take away from Belgium before we move on is, of all the people in different places there who saw something, many of them were either interviewed, asked to draw something, this person over here and this person, and when you look at the collection of drawings and sketches and descriptions, it's eerily similar.
Absolutely, it is the same craft. And by the way, I have spoken to the Belgian general, Wilfred de Brouwer, who led the official investigation into this, and he talked me through this in great detail. And also, when I was at the Ministry of Defence doing the job on the UFO program, we made inquiries of the Belgians through our embassy, and we spoke to General de Brouwer, we spoke to the two F-16 pilots. The official conclusion of the Belgian government, I mean, they came out and said so, is this was real, and we have no idea what it was.
Approximately 140 UFO sightings were reported. Hundreds of people saw a majestic triangular craft with a span of approximately 120 feet. Powerful beaming spotlights moving very slowly without making any significant noise, but in several cases accelerating to very high speeds. In short, the Belgian UFO wave was exceptional, and the Air Force could not identify the nature, origin, and intentions of the reported phenomena. Thank you very much.
Wow.
And why would he say it was this many feet? You know, somebody in Belgium does not think in feet.
Ooh,
I'm sorry.
Good call. Wow.
You know, what was he reading? Some press release? You know,
written by someone from the U.S.
Well, I mean,
England.
No,
he was
I'm not
speaking English. I mean,
I'm not saying he
that's
wasn't telling the truth. I'm just saying that's weird.
That was kind of weird. I didn't even catch that. That's a good catch.
Yeah.
So we're talking. They just got done talking. Well, they may not be done yet, but I just wanted to stop it there because Steve just dropped his head like, oh my God. So this happened in 1990. A wave of triangles. The general at the end there said about 140 of them. Hundreds of people saw it. They caught it on multiple different radar systems. They scrambled F-16 jets. They caught it on their radar system. They caught it on the ground radar system. and they couldn't catch it.
Well, whenever the craft felt like it just moved away from the lock,
which is
and then waited for them to get a lock again. So it was playing with them.
So wow, what a sighting! That really is probably one of the most impressive ones I have heard of yet. It's modern day. We've got pictures, and one of the neat things about it is they asked all these witnesses to draw it, and they all drew the same thing.
Well, and what I want to know is if there are people that are reporting interacting with the aliens, right? Which we're not getting to that yet, but we will eventually. There's different kind of craft. Does that prove that there's different kinds of aliens? And I think that that's a true statement. So just because all of a sudden now the aliens with these triangle-shaped ships are really interested in us, and maybe they've gotten a pass to be in the Earth's airspace for a little while, and then it's the next alien's turn, and these guys look more like guitars or, forks instead of plates and saucers, right? There's a lot of different kinds of aliens, probably. I mean, think about it.
I'm not even willing to admit they're piloted by aliens yet.
What do you think they're piloted by?
I think there could be just top secret military drones. I mean, I've heard that the CIA and their black, totally super secret operations. I mean, there's like what they call it, the black part of the military budget, where there's like billions of dollars going to this department, and no one knows what they do with it. And some suspect that they have their own flippin' military even. And they might have some super secret drone program.
Yeah, maybe
something.
they're learning. Maybe the aliens are teaching them how to build craft like theirs.
Who knows? Or maybe we're being visited by aliens. Yeah.
This is a really, you bring up a good point. If it really is a secret government program, and these different crafts were created by humans, right? Again, I ask, why now? Why is it now they're using the excuse that they're alien crafts to hide the fact that we actually have the capability of making these things? I think that's more far-fetched, frankly, than aliens, than UFOs being real. You're
thinking it's far-fetched that we have this kind of technology.
Exactly. Because if we did, there'd be another space race or whatever you want to call it.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why they kept it under wraps. They don't want other countries to know what we have.
A really rich country like Belgium can make something like that? You're saying Belgium's military made something like that? Or are you saying the United States just happened to be testing it in Belgium?
We've got bases everywhere.
Yeah, but this makes no sense.
How?
You think they'd do it in an area that's not populated? There are a few left on this earth, if they're trying to keep it secret. So I don't buy that theory.
Well, maybe they wanted to test if they could elude those F-16s. Could they elude the radar?
Yeah, but if they have their own army and they have their own F-16s, why is this even needing to... Well, you're saying it's this secret black part of the government.
Well, they've got new technology. Why would they need F-16s? They got something better than F-16s.
Yeah, but if they wanted to test whether or not it could get away from an F-16 radar lock, they would have their own to test it with if it was really that top secret.
Maybe they wanted to test what a military, how they would react, how people would react.
Okay, okay, folks. So those that are listening, let's just clarify our positions, okay? So go ahead. What's your position
there are
here,
UFOs out
Joe?
there. I believe this really happened. I don't know who's piloting this thing, where it came from. It's an unidentified flying object. I don't necessarily believe aliens are piloting this craft. It could be remote for all I know, although it's a pretty damn big craft to be piloting remotely, I think, 120 feet.
If any of you are looking for a good science fiction book, it's called Ender's Game. ENDER''S game. And in this book, they encourage all of the... you can only have one child. I mean, it's a pretty involved society. But the ones that show promise in these video games, they don't tell them. But they're really actually piloting craft, just like you're talking about, and fighting these interstellar wars to save their planets. But they don't know it. They think they're playing a video game. So...
that brings up a movie that I kind of liked. A similar kind of premise is The Last Starfighter, with his kids playing a video game and he just crushes it, and then next thing you know he's visited by this guy saying, we need you to help us save our
Yeah.
planet or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you're not buying the theory that our government is capable of manufacturing these things.
I'm thinking maybe that's possible. Isn't that kind of Occam's razor? Maybe.
Well, then how can you have both stances? You think both things right now? There's aliens
No,
and
I don't believe in aliens. I'm trying to tell you, I don't
Okay.
believe in aliens. I
So-
don't think. Show me an alien. Have we seen a picture of an alien yet? No, not
Okay,
one.
so you're saying these UFOs are government made and government
I think it's
piloted
quite possible.
somehow.
I mean, if you listen to Bob Lazar talk, he's saying that the UFOs, those flying saucers, that we have 9 of them apparently out near or around Area 51. There's other areas besides Area 51. At least, they probably moved them by now, but whatever. He says there's like 9 of them, and they were found in archaeological digs. So these things are ancient, and they're just trying to, backward engineer them, and maybe they figured it out.
Oh, and decided to make them look like a triangle instead.
Yeah.
That is highly unlikely.
You think so, huh? You think it's more likely? Or do you think it's another planet, another dimension?
First of all, let me just, I shouldn't have used the word debunk, but let me just make sure I understand your position here, Main Joe. Okay. So you believe that these unidentified flying objects are government made and piloted, correct?
I don't
In
know.
a nutshell.
I think that's maybe more likely than aliens
Okay,
flying.
so stop backtracking on me, dude. Take a stand right now. Here and now, just for the purposes
Hey,
of this discussion.
I'm just saying these things exist. That's all I know.
Okay. But you don't think aliens exist, so
I think it's
therefore,
possible. I think it's
ipso
more likely.
facto Oreo. You believe that the governments are making these things and somehow piloting
I think
them.
that's more likely. Yeah.
Okay, so you're taking a stand for that view. And I want to say that
I think if I had to put money on it, that's where my money would go.
Okay, got it. So my stance on this is, if this really were a thing that governments were coming up with, we would have way more pushback from all the other countries. They'd be trying to spy on us, steal the secrets, XYZ. You know what I mean? That's not happening. It's not happening right now. There's no UFO race to see who can build the fastest interstellar craft that could get you to Mars in 2.5 seconds.
Maybe that's
look at our
coming.
space program. Do they have that there just so that,
Well, there
to
you go.
entertain us?
Well, there you go.
When they're making these triangular shaped things that can zip off.
Look at our space program.
Yeah, our space.
People aren't trying to steal all our rocket technology. They are trying to develop their own, though.
Well, of course, and that's normal, but no.
So why do you think it'd be any different if we had UFO technology? They'd try to develop their own. They wouldn't be trying to steal ours necessarily.
Well,
You know what I
if
mean?
we had that technology, why are we hiding it? Why are we not using it?
We're downplaying it, like he said, because they can't. They can't.
What?
The official government can't catch them and don't want to admit that they can't catch them.
Okay, but if we made them, why are we?
But you say we like everyone knows about it. I'm talking about black ops, super, super secret. The president can't even find out about this stuff. Obama tried to find out about it. Trump tried to find out about it. No one's talking. No one's telling the president of the United States what's going on. So what makes you think that anybody,
You're making some really good points in defending your theory. So
Okay.
I'm gonna give you that one.
All right, let's
Yep.
continue.
God, dude. And it's
I love it when he does
the
that.
government officially, on the record, publicly, is like,
He hits his head.
That's a UFO.
Oh,
Yes,
or
there are
that's scary.
declassified Belgian Air Force documents that set all this out.
There's, I've read into the Belgian wave. We're not going to go any further into it, but I suggest anyone watching, there are some crazy details behind these sightings. Let's jump back across the Atlantic to Arizona, 97. Now, I know the Phoenix Lights, one of the most famous bulk wave sightings ever.
Do these lights belong to visitors from outer space? Hundreds of people across the valley think it's a distinct possibility.
Eyewitnesses who saw it say it's like nothing they've ever seen before.
UFO watchers are calling it a dramatic event.
And folks who witnessed this strange sighting are calling it simply unexplainable.
So I did a Skype interview with Dr. Lynn Katai, who took video footage of the Phoenix Lights. And this footage has been used everywhere. It's famous footage, and this is what she has to say about it.
The first time I had an experience with the Phoenix Lights, this was less than 100 yards from our home, and it was a uniform amber color throughout, and it didn't glare at all. Every other light out there glared. And as we both watched, the top orb, without budget, from the other two underneath, started to implode. It's very difficult to describe in logical terms, because it was like a dimmer switch. It was mechanical, as if there was an intelligence behind it, and got smaller and smaller, slowly getting smaller and smaller, till it was pea-size, and then disappeared. Nothing even remotely similar to these orbs showed up for 2 years, until 2 months before the mass sighting. This was January 1997. I noticed 3 huge orbs, but at a distance. So I ran downstairs, I grabbed my video camera, I get out to the pool area. I got about 18 seconds worth, and the battery went dead. And it was fully charged. I run in, I grab my 35 millimeter, I run outside on the balcony. As I'm ready to shoot the 3, suddenly 6 lights across, equidistant from each other, massive span, over a mile wide, pops up over the 3. It was unnerving. And when analyzed, and all my photographic evidence was analyzed extensively by university and military optical experts, and the conclusion were that these lights were true unknowns, that whatever I captured on 35 millimeter to this day cannot be explained or denied. And many people on March 13th, 1997, thousands of people, saw actual craft.
I spoke to a witness who, and I said, to try and get a sense of this, well, how big was this thing and how low was it? And he said to me, Nick, if I had thrown a rock at this, I would have hit the underside of it. Everyone was just stopped. Cars were pulled up. They were looking out. They were pointing. And so for every witness we have, and we have like dozens if not hundreds, there are probably hundreds if not thousands more who saw it, but who have never come forward officially and gone on the record.
Years later, the governor himself.
So that was a simulation?
Dramatization.
This is, of course, once he's retired and it won't kill his career, comes out and says, yeah, I also saw it that night. I saw a triangular craft.
I saw something that defied logic and challenged my reality. I witnessed a massive delta-shaped craft that silently navigated over the Squaw Peak area in North Phoenix in the evening, and it was truly breathtaking.
And it was just such a cool moment for those other witnesses to have their former governor kind of back them up.
It was, but of course that's quite controversial because at the time...
he treated it like a joke.
He treated it like a joke. He did a press conference.
In costume.
And what he did is he said, we have identified the culprit. And he had his chief of staff come out dressed in an alien suit.
Don't get him too close to me, please. It's, you know. This just goes to show that you guys are entirely too serious.
Well, of course, it got a laugh, and the media then treated it as a joke. He subsequently apologized for that. He said, frankly, the only reason he did that is he was worried that the whole situation was descending into almost mass hysteria.
We managed to lessen the sense of panic at the time, but I also upset quite a few of my constituents. Well, I'd like now to set the record straight. I never meant to ridicule anyone. My office did make inquiries as to the origin of the craft, but to this day they remain unanswered.
Has there ever been an official statement on this incident?
Some of the military, I believe, put out a statement to say that there had been maybe some military exercise going on involving aircraft dropping flares.
Flares, right.
The military says the lights over Arizona last night were flares, but the people who saw the lights last night say they couldn't have been flares. The lights were too bright.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because you're investigate these things, but flares, they fall.
Yeah.
And then the wind separates them. And what we're observing in the Phoenix lights are lights that are consistent distance from each other, and they don't deviate.
So One theory about the aircraft is that, of course, those aircraft would have been scrambled, as we know military jets are often scrambled, to investigate the UFOs. So, yeah, I'm not saying that there were no aircraft there, and maybe some of them later, around 10 in the evening, dropped flares, but because they too were part of maybe an operation to try and find out what the heck this thing was.
And this takes us later to Illinois, in St. Clair, Illinois.
Now, can we pause it here for a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think they'd wrap up the Phoenix Lights quite so quickly, but okay. Yeah, another interesting sighting.
Yeah, and I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but in this show, this guy from England, Dr.
Nick Pope. He's not a
Nick
doctor.
Pope.
Nick Pope. He used to work for their UFO department.
He's not assuming what you are. He's not saying, okay, the military is hiding this stuff from us. He's assuming that the UFOs are connected to aliens. Am I correct in saying that?
I don't know yet.
And every time...
I think they're going to get to an alien episode.
Every time the other guy goes, ooh, spooky,
creepy,
creepy, whatever, nobody is coming out at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, and saying the military is developing these things and hiding them from us. Why isn't anyone saying that? Because really, it's a solid theory.
Well, I told you that Bob Lazar guy says that they're trying to backward engineering. They hired him to try and figure out the propulsion system.
Yeah, but now, right now, as all this stuff is coming out, nobody is saying anything like you are. They are all assuming that there are aliens. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think you're probably correct there.
Okay.
It's just easier maybe. I don't know. But it just... I have to laugh out loud when they said flares. And they actually showed us a video clip of flares compared to the Phoenix Lights.
Well, anyone who's seen fireworks knows what flares look
they're
like.
So smoky, and there's no way these lights were flares, in my opinion. I think the amber light with no glare is interesting to me, because in a lot of the video clips they do show of these UFOs, those lights do seem...
amber colored?
They just seem to glow without having this...
a power source.
Without having our type of, the lights that we use and live with every day, that glare, that irritation. Mm-hmm. Because you're really sensitive to light. And I'll bet you if you see these UFO lights, you probably wouldn't be bothered, but you're bothered by just about every other kind of light that humans use on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I think that's something to stick a pin in, put it in the back of your mind, and keep an eye out for, because I think we'll see more of that too. The weird light that they have. Again, we have lots of people seeing this thing. He said people were pulling over on the side of the road, and they showed this really funny dramatization with people pointing. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Massive. Again, it was massive. And that woman you saw at the beginning of this clip, beginning of this episode of The Basement Office, is a doctor. She's a doctor, and she used 2 different cameras to film these lights.
Well, and she feels like it drained the battery. That's the impression that she gave.
That's something else to put a pin in. We see more of that too.
Do we? Okay. Well, these are some interesting
electronic
facts.
things just stop working for no reason. Let's see, what else was there?
And I think that's only with a certain type of UFO, right? Where it drains things and makes lights flicker, and human lights, human-made lights.
And something else that bothers me is, where the hell were we in 97? We were here. We were together in 97?
97's when we got divorced.
Yes. That's the year I graduated from college.
Yes.
And I don't remember hearing anything about it.
That was the Phoenix Lights?
Yeah, and we're not that far away from Phoenix,
that's
really.
True.
I mean, we could probably get there in a long day's drive.
Yeah.
I wonder why the news here didn't, or I don't. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention to the news.
Obviously, they were trying to squash it.
Yeah, that's true too. Oh, it's just flares.
Yep.
Okay, interesting.
But if you're really interested in seeing a UFO, which you have never seen one before, is that correct, Joe?
Well, I've seen weird stuff. I hesitate to say it was an actual UFO. I guess. Well, it was unidentified. I couldn't identify it.
So you have seen one.
I guess I've seen one. If I had to. Yeah.
You don't like to commit, do you?
I don't.
Well, I think, really,
I'm a doubting Thomas.
At this point in time,
that
is a good place to stand, because we just don't have enough information yet. And I want you to know that down the road, I'll share with you a process for learning how to see UFOs, if you're interested. Okay. Maybe not this episode. It'll come up at some point.
We've got a lot of episodes to go through, so we'll see how that works.
Yeah, Mr. Doubter, Thomas.
All right. So they're jumping to another one here. This is St. Clair County, Illinois, in the year 2000.
Where we see very similar triangles to the Phoenix Lights. Okay, so I actually Skyped with David Marler, who literally wrote the book on triangular UFOs. I did a Skype interview with him. Here's some things that he had to say. Tell me about St. Clair, Illinois in 2000.
An over-the-road truck driver was coming home late one morning. He happens to see this extremely bright light off to the northeast. Within a matter of a few minutes, as he's sitting there, this light, which is obviously now, as it comes closer, is a light affixed to a large object, silently, very gently floats over the tree line, and he notices it slowly disappear to the southwest. He immediately notifies the police of what he had just witnessed. They weren't sure if he was altogether there, reporting a UFO, but he was very emphatic that if you contact Lebanon, Illinois police, they should see it, because it was basically that trajectory, which is the direction it was heading in. They contact Officer Ed Barton, and he's making a joke about it initially. We have the dispatch tapes where you can hear the officers talking to each other. But very shortly, his skepticism erodes.
There's a very bright white light east of town. Looks like it's just east of Summerfield. And it keeps changing colors. I'll go there and see if maybe it's an aircraft. It doesn't look like an aircraft, though.
The object came directly overhead, and what he witnessed was a large, essentially isosceles triangle.
This object was above me about 500 feet, and it was huge.
The object, as it's hovering there, made a flat turn like that. It didn't bank like conventional aircraft where you have a large turn radius. Made a flat turn, executed that maneuver, and then rapidly accelerated in the blink of an eye to the southwest. He immediately gets on the radio, states, well, whatever it is, it seems to be headed towards Shiloh, which was the direction of the next neighboring town in that direction.
10-4, well, whether it's a plane or not, it's heading westbound now. It should be really close to Scott now.
And the other officer in Shiloh states immediately, yeah, I see it, but I don't know what the heck it is.
25, I see something, but I don't know what that is.
So we have these officers in radio contact as they're visually tracking this object. And it was then cited subsequent to that by two other police officers and another officer that came forward later, and we were able to establish the flight path of this UFO.
I've got that object inside also. Are you serious? It's huge.
It was, most witnesses described it as triangular in shape, with various lighting characteristics, but all of them, with the exception of one, stated it was completely silent. One officer said he thought he heard a slightning or droning sound with the object.
You can't really hear it.
Unusual. What's interesting about the case is the caliber of the witnesses, the fact that it flew in very close proximity to Scott Air Force Base, within 1 to 2 miles, yet Scott Air Force Base denied any knowledge of it. We have an official statement that they weren't testing or supporting the test of any aircraft in that area at that time. The radar system was down, so we didn't have any radar data associated with that.
Convenient.
The ability for this object to hover, rapidly accelerate, and do so with a complete absence of a sonic boom is highly suggestive that this is someone else's technology.
And 4 years later, there was another mass sighting in Illinois.
Someone
so we have the
else's
footage
technology.
Of this, but basically, in Tinley Park, on more than one night, a large triangular formation of lights is seen over the city, videotaped by residents. When they zoom in on the lights give off a cherry red, with almost, it looks like a rainbow of lights spinning in each of these things. And again, I think to the naked eye, these look like three individual things, as I think people saw the Phoenix lights as individual little lights.
What we're looking at very often with these triangular UFOs is a flat triangle with the witnesses essentially being underneath it.
You're suggesting that these are actually attached on the corners of a craft.
Yes, you're looking at three lights at each tip of the triangle. And very often, and it's interesting, we see this with Tinley Park, I think, a hint of a fainter, maybe whiter light bang in the center of the underside of this thing. Now, are any of these things navigation lights, and in which case why would they need lights? Or are they connected, as many believe, with the propulsion system of this UFO?
In this age where everyone's got a cell phone.
All right, I want to pause it there because this another amazing series of sightings in Illinois in 2000. What I love about this sighting is the way it was passed off from town to town to town.
That makes it very credible.
And credible witnesses, police officers, and radio communication. They all say it's huge, corroborating each other's story. You know, it's like very interesting.
Well, and interesting that it flew right over an Air Force base who completely ignored it. You know,
their radar was down,
and then said,
"See, and
we were not testing anything of that kind."
Doesn't that kind of lend credibility to my theory that it's our technology?
Yes, it does.
Or is it the aliens know the Air Force base is there and they have radar jamming capabilities that they sometimes use and sometimes don't? Because in Belgium, the radar could pick it up.
I say it depends on, you know, which alien species
who's driving.
Yeah, well, not necessarily. I'm not saying that they have to drive them. You know, maybe they do. I don't know. I think a lot of them can just come down here. They don't need craft.
And another interesting part of this this story, this sighting, is that one of the witnesses to this aircraft or this UFO that they were passing, you know, using their radios from town to town,
mm-hmm.
one of them mentioned the droning that you mentioned in your friend's sighting.
It's like you almost can hear it, but not really. It's below the level of human hearing. It's kind of a hum, but you can feel it in your body. I think that's exactly what he meant.
Wow. So was the craft that your friend saw, remind me, was it triangular, round? She couldn't really tell because it was behind the cloud layer.
Okay, so the one that was up above, so it was almost like it wasn't meant to be seen, but you could feel the hum, and she knew what that was because she's seen others before. So in this case, the whole sky, it was a sunny day, and then all of a sudden, just like that, the whole sky got cloudy. And she could feel the pressure and that droning thing.
So the shape of the craft, she really couldn't.
No, because it was covered.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, it just, boom, it was gone and it was sunny again. But it hovered for a few hours.
Okay. So very cool, man. A very interesting sighting indeed. All right. I think they're just going to wrap up the show here. He's going to ask him a couple more questions. But yeah, some really good triangular sightings in this episode of The Basement Office.
So you think this whole thing is a conspiracy by governments to hide new technology?
I'm leaning that
us.
direction, yes.
That is just insane. The governments are getting more and more insane, and you know, that's kind of scary. To me, that's more scary than having a race of people who have evolved enough that they can do interstellar travel and come visit us without hurting anyone. You know, so far, there have been no bombings, there have been nothing from these crafts. They're just...
Well, I've heard stories where fighter jets have fired missiles at them, and these craft will send out a beam of light and take down the fighter jets. I think they have taken down, at least according to my stupid computer. I need a new one that's just whacked.
Oh, it's fine. It came back.
Yeah. I think it was in Russia where a couple fighter jets fired on it, and they took down a couple pilots, and the Russians decided at that point, don't fire on these things anymore.
Really? And so
yeah.
were the fighter pilots okay? Or
no, they died. They lost a couple.
Yeah.
That's the story I heard anyway.
Aggression.
I don't know how.
I wonder if they'll get to it on this show.
They might. I think there's an Iranian fighter jet intercept that they talk about in one of the episodes, but I'm not 100%
So
sure.
I just, as JoJo here, I just want to be very clear that I completely think that your theory is valid, but I do not agree with it.
Okay.
That shoots 4K video in their pocket. Where are the Phoenix lights now? Where are the Tinley Park lights? Where are the Hudson Valley lights?
That's a good question.
That's a good point.
Now would be a great time to get them on cell phone video or something now. Where'd they go, or are we due for a return?
This is an events-led phenomenon, and I think your second point was probably the answer. We are overdue for a huge mass sighting, and in this modern age with ubiquitous cell phones and things, yes, if something on the scale of Hudson Valley or Phoenix Lights happens today, it will be undeniable. There will be hundreds, if not thousands, of high-quality photos and videos. Nobody will be able to deny it, and maybe, just maybe, it will push the whole question over the line. It will take us from a situation where we have evidence to a situation where we have absolutely definitive proof.
Well, I can't wait, Nick.
Me too.
I don't know.
Who knows? It could be a while. It could be next week. It could be tonight. That's why I say this is events-led. You just never know when the next absolutely mega case is going to hit. You may have another Roswell tomorrow. You may have another Hudson Valley the day after. You may have another Rendlesham next week.
Now, what I haven't told you yet is that I've actually seen one of these black triangles. And in the next episode, I'm going to share my personal encounter with you.
Oh, I look forward to that.
And that's the one I told you about earlier in one of our previous podcasts that took place down in Provo here.
All right. Very close to
So,
us.
yeah, really, really interesting episode just because the sightings that they talked about just so hard to deny. I mean, passing it off like that. Multiple witnesses. Huge craft.
And so the question now is not whether or not they exist, because they obviously do.
That's where I'm at. They exist.
Where do they come from? That's the question of the...
Exactly.
It's a question of the century, really.
Really?
I mean, here we are
Here
in
we
a
are.
new century for the last 21 years, or 20 and a half, or whatever. You know, we're due. I agree with him.
Yeah.
And I do have a method to help the human brain see them.
Yeah, but you know, you've told me this method, and my sighting...
Spoiler alert.
My sighting was kind of like, you know, it occurred exactly how you said it kind of would. So I'm not sure if you just planted the seed or what. And it was just a dot, a white light up in the sky when I was sitting in a hot tub one clear night. And, you know, I don't know if it was just a dot that did something weird and then gone. You know?
Did something impossible in the sky and you saw it.
And, well, it did something impossible and then it did something normal and then it was gone.
Which you don't care to share, or we
Well, I
waiting
just
for the
did
next
share it.
episode?
I just did share it. That's all it was.
Exactly
That's
what
all
did it do?
was.
Exactly what?
It did this erratic movement, like a ping pong ball, which I think was mentioned in one of the videos. That I think Commander Fravor even mentioned it when he was viewing that tic tac that hovered above the water. It was moving erratically, like a ping pong ball. I think he might have even said those words. And so that's what I saw, and then it just straightened out and just started going across the sky.
So the impossible part was the ping pong.
The ping pong ball part, yeah.
So you watched it go over the horizon then, or?
No, it was the night sky.
Yeah.
It was just, it looked like any other star. It was, you know, if I didn't know better, I probably would have said that's a satellite or a plane really far away. If it wasn't for that ping pong ball effect that I saw initially.
Yep, you did it. That's good.
But
first step.
I want to see one close up. That one guy said if he had a rock, he could have threw it and hit the underside of that sucker.
It's a good thing he didn't, because he probably would have got blasted to Kingdom Come, man, by the aliens.
Oh, man.
This has been a great show. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I've enjoyed this.
All right, that about wraps up this one. Unless you got any final things to say. I sure don't. Really interesting episode. I thank the New York Post for putting this together. It really kind of, you know, compiles all these amazing sightings and everything and helps me feel like I'm informed.
Put it into perspective.
Yes, there you go.
There we go. Thanks for
listening.
listening.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.